So what we thought we'd do is take another look at Star Wars, which just now broke the United States box office record, which was once held by Gone with the Wind and then by Jaws. Star Wars goes into national re-release for the Christmas season, and for many people that'll be another chance to see those two wonderful non-human friends of ours, the robots R2-D2 and C-3PO. Here we see them in a planetary wasteland. The movie is supposed to be set millions and millions of years ago in a galaxy far away, but every time I see it, R2-D2 and C-3PO somehow remind me of Laurel and Hardy. In any event, they may only be robots, but they're the two most sympathetic characters in the film, and it took great special effects to create them. And that's another thing Star Wars and Close Encounters have in common, real magic of combining animation, models, double, triple exposures, and all the other tricks of the special effects trade. Look, for example, at this sensational battle in outer space. Boom! So there you have it. Your basic intergalactic warfare as the heroic princess is snatched away from the Death Star by the intrepid space buccaneers. And what's the meaning of it all? Who knows and who cares? Star Wars became the new box office champion by providing pure 100% escapist entertainment. It's one of those rare movies that seems to play to every sort of audience, Gene, and bring out the kid in all of us.
You know, I've seen the picture 3 times, and that sequence more than that. And every time I see that little fighting sequence, I think I figured out the secret of at least that chunk of the movie, and that is, that looks exactly like what happens at a pinball game that kids love. We're seeing things blow up, and I think the way this movie is shot different ways, quick action like that, it's like you're putting every person as a pinball player who walks into the theater.
Maybe that's why people can see it a dozen times or 2 dozen times, because it doesn't matter that you know the story. You still have the sound and light, the effects, the explosions, the dogfight in outer space. It's just a never-ending visual delight. I think it's a movie that will last for years.
Yeah, the only thing I'm worried about is it's so successful and so mindless fun that I hope Hollywood doesn't forget that there are people who like to see serious pictures, too.
And so it wasn't until the summer of 1977 that another big space movie made history. The name of the movie was Star Wars, and it eventually went on to become the single biggest box office moneymaker of all time. But did it break new ground in the consideration of mankind's place in the universe? Did it push the vision of 2001 any further? Not really, and I guess it didn't intend to. Star Wars was basically a Western set in outer space, a shootout at the intergalactic corral. Look at this scene, for example, where director George Lucas is having fun making an outer space satire of the classic Western gunfight. Just pure entertainment. The whole movie was like that, non-stop thrills and action from beginning to end. And the reason Star Wars was such a huge success was that it was great visual entertainment. It never stopped.
Yeah, I think of it as a pinball game for the eyes. It's just like those things where you just shoot and put your quarter
in. You know, what we were just looking at there with Mark Hamill with the gun, it was like that new quarter game...
Space Invaders.
Space Invaders, the video game,
real popular game.
And Gene starts with a look at how this resurgence began with a couple of characters named Han Solo and Luke Skywalker.
Sounds familiar. One of the great stories in movie history has to be the tale of what prompted George Lucas to propose making a $10 million Flash Gordon movie, in effect, back in 1977, and what prompted 20th Century Fox and its then president, Alan Ladd Jr., to back Lucas. Maybe they both realized that the young people of the day didn't really have any heroes their own age being created for them in the movies. Jack Nicholson was a big star. John Wayne had just passed from the scene. Where were the teenage stars, the young people? Still, it was a very big risk for them to make this film because prior to Star Wars, no science fiction film had been really very big box office. But Star Wars changed all that. Part of its appeal was that in addition to these young heroes, the film itself was sort of one long video game for the eyes. Instead of dropping a quarter into a video game machine, you paid your $4 at the box office, sat down in your theater seat, and vicariously watched young Luke Skywalker shoot down enemy spaceships. Put in your money, here we go. Sure beats pinball. Now, when a film is a surprise hit, that's when it really changes the direction of the movie industry. If Barbra Streisand has a hit picture, well, everyone expects she will. Same with Eastwood, so they don't really change the movies. The surprise hits change the movies, and when Star Wars was the biggest surprise hit in film history, suddenly every studio boss was saying, get me one of those. And the special effects men, who'd been out of work for a while, suddenly were very much in demand. The science fiction fantasy boom was now underway.
It was just amazing. I remember in 1977, the movie opened on a Wednesday, and somehow every kid in America knew on Tuesday night that he wanted to see that movie the next day. There were lines around the block, newspapers and television stations were down there covering it, and the phenomenon was that nobody expected this. The market surveys didn't show that Star Wars was going to be such a big hit, but it tapped into, I think, into two things. First of all, you're quite right, the hunger for heroes, and secondly, the hardware, the technology. This was an era when kids were playing the first early video games. They were into their Walkmans, their stereo systems, and so forth. Here was a whole movie that was just like they'd like to furnish their bedroom.
Very good. Coming up next, on their 20th anniversary, the Star Wars movies are coming back with freshly restored prints, better special effects, a few new scenes, and a powerful soundtrack. Is the Force still with these movies? Of course, that's Mark Hamill as young Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker in the original 1977 production of Star Wars, at one time the best-selling movie ever made. In honor of its 20th anniversary, and to help fund and promote future films in the series, producer-director George Lucas has updated the film, strengthened its special effects with new technology, and even put in a couple of scenes he says he couldn't get right the first time. For example, here's a new scene as pilot-for-hire Han Solo, a 34-year-old Harrison Ford, gets into an argument with alien mobster Jabba the Hutt, who we saw only in the third film in the series, Return of the Jedi, and then only in limited motion. Take a look at this beautifully edited scene, a favorite of Lucas's, as Luke and Han and Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, fight off the Imperial forces. Of course, the Star Wars movies were also filled with many, many memorable characters. In addition to three young heroes, we get the Laurel and Hardy of robots, a loyal dog that stands erect, an old wise man, and a great villain with the voice of CNN, James Earl Jones. All three of the Star Wars movies are being brought back in a series that begins this week with the first one. Does it hold up? Definitely. The significance of the Star Wars saga? It anticipated video games and high-tech while reviving the spirit of Saturday matinee adventure serial and a classic yarn with familiar myths. The huge success of Star Wars pictures also changed the direction of American movies toward a more global kind of big-budget action picture. But few of its imitators have had the depth of character of this most original film.
Oh, you're right about that, Gene. And the depth of this movie, the generosity of it, the richness of the visuals is really what impressed me the second time around. Like the scene, the famous scene in the bar, or the scene inside that big tank with the used robot and droid dealers.
Right.
The things in the corner, the other little robots, the other creatures, the other strange things, the little desert rats.
Right.
Everything in the frame creates this world. You feel there's an abundance of reality here, not just the characters in the center.
I think the audacity to dream up the project is probably the most amazing thing in itself. And also to call Alec Guinness and to get him. I'm impressed that Guinness did it, but I'm more impressed that Lucas thought to ask him.
Well, what he did, and I think what we felt when we saw the movie the first time, was we knew this material from comic books, from Captain Video on television, from Space Cadet novels, and so forth. Finally, it was done right.
Yeah, done well.
And that was fun.